Now,
So when I see the screen, then I know I should say we should talk.
Yep, you're on right now.
Hi, everybody. Infrastructure Committee meeting for looking at consolidation. I'm Ellen Rocco, and I am, I guess, the chairperson. Sir?
Kurt Levata, Director of Planning, Zoning and Codes, Village of New Falls.
Jean Gallucci, Town Board.
Carol Roper, citizen, I guess.
Annie Connolly, village resident.
I'm a town resident.
Great. All right. We had decided at our last meeting that we would try to come up with our recommendations for how to handle water and sewer districts if there's a consolidation. So how are people feeling about this? Would someone like to speak? Or should I speak, or?
Well, I wasn't there, but my feeling has always been through this whole process that the district should stay delineated as they are, and the residents should pay accordingly. I don't feel you can't consolidate them. Sewer districts 5 and 6 in the town.
Well, wait, let's do them one at a time.
Do
So
what?
pick one.
Sewer or water.
Oh, sewer.
Yeah, but-
I'll take sewer then.
Does it make a difference if we pick one particular one or just talk about them? Because I don't think it's even feasible to consider, say, consolidating the village and say Water 1 and the town's Water 2, 3, and 4 still have to remain segregated and the sewers have to remain segregated. You know what I mean? So I think it's either, our discussion would be either all of them are left or all of them are consolidated.
Well,
When you say all of them, do you mean both water and sewer together? Or all of the sewer?
Well,
or all of
water
the
is water and sewer is sewer because they're two
Yes.
different funds.
Right.
But either the villages and the towns, water is consolidated into one, or they become 5 districts, and the village and the town sewer is left as 4 districts or consolidated into one.
except for sewer district 6.
Why is sewer 6 isolated?
Well, for 2 reasons. First of all, the idea of going to one district was based on contiguity. So it would be talking about
What's contiguous?
what's actually, what on paper could already look like one district if it wasn't on our maps in different colors.
Then you're isolating Water District 4 and Sewer 6.
Well, Water District 4, if I understand correctly,
It's Mountain Rest Road.
actually, because of the way the pipes run,
Mm-hmm.
it actually is, even if it isn't on the face of it, it actually is contiguous under the ground. That the water that they get, if I'm understanding this correctly, comes through a pipe, that's our pipe, that makes it contiguous.
Okay, but then are Water District 4 users at the town paying out of district user rates because they're using the village pipe?
Yeah,
Water
are they?
District 4.
Well, they pay.
Well,
different
Water
rates.
District 4 was created after I left the town. It was created under Don 1, Water District 4. So I did not bill for that particular district, so I can't tell.
Well, neither did
Okay,
I.
so that's a good district. That's a good question.
Water
My
District 4.
understanding is that it is paying the surcharge.
Okay.
Water District 4. So maybe we could, for the moment at least, go on the assumption that that's true and then back off of it if it isn't. So we could still be talking about it as though it's contiguous. So
Okay,
here's-
cause I
On
don't,
the map, they.
well, I don't see
they're joined.
contiguous.
Right, but my understanding from Dave, if I'm remembering this correctly, is that,
Well, yeah, there's a water main that goes down the road because
Right.
the water plant is there.
right,
And so the main has to come down the road to
Exactly.
supply the rest of us.
right. So, as I said, for all intents and purposes, it is contiguous, just as Cherry Hill is a town, you know, is in the town and paying the buyer rate, not the village rate.
Okay, I thought contiguous was surrounding the pink, the village confines.
Well, technically it is,
Okay.
but given that there
It
is,
looks as though, see, I get this drawing, which would make it then contiguous.
right,
I'm sorry, say that again, Carl?
The little teeny foot at the bottom of the pink.
So it looks as though it touches.
Oh, okay, I
Is
see what
it-
you're saying, yeah, yeah.
Look at that question mark. in
but
there.
again, if the water is coming through, it's not as though they're separate the way sewer District 6 is separate. It doesn't
Which
use
has its own
plant.
own plant, everything,
Right.
it's entirely separate.
Right,
Always
so
has been.
what I was suggesting is that we talk about this in terms of that the objection that I was raising when we were talking about either all or none is, no matter what we do about sewer, however we treat it, sewer District 6, it seems, has to stay independent.
Is there indebtedness in these water districts? I mean, that's the only thing I
Most
can see
likely,
that's a
but
bond,
I'll
that's a barrier to
Well,
making them,
but-
at all.
Yeah, but sewer district 6 may be separate now, but who says it can't be,
Well, it would have to
Connected.
change its whole configuration.
Right.
I mean, it has its own plant. You know, so it's
very
entirely,
small plant.
true.
Right.
But it's never been, well, I'm not gonna, I've been in government so recently, but certainly when it was created, and back when I was in government, it was never ever considered as part of.
Right.
Okay, so you wanna know if water has indebtedness?
Yes.
Water. Water, 1 does not.
Okay.
Water 2 does not. Water 3 does.
And
Does?
Does, yes.
do we know the terms of that?
I do not know the terms. It appears by the amount that it is a long term, probably 30 years. And water 4 appears does not.
And are you Water District 5?
I'm in sewer, I'm in sewer.
She's
No.
sewer
Oh, oh,
only,
I have my own
right?
well.
Cherry Hill is.
Well, part of Cherry Hill, part of it has water, but
Right.
where I am, we don't have water, we have sewer.
Okay, so the part that has water is that?
In Cherry Hill,
And is that considered District 5?
that, no, wait, okay. In Cherry Hill is sewer 5, this, 4, oh, here.
Cherry Hill Road itself has water, I think, but not off it. Because the standpipe used to be, remember, by True Value, remember the standpipe was there?
My understanding is that it has minimal indebtedness, but it's minimal. But I don't wanna go Water 5.
There is no.
There is no-
Oh, okay, so it's
Okay.
not considered a separate district. Then maybe I am thinking of sewer.
Okay,
Cherry-
now
Cherry
the
Hill.
Village's water has, debt.
Okay.
2 million in debt. Well, it's probably less than that now. It was 2 million when they did that 2006, 7. When they did the meter. Yeah. That's big. They're paying 90,000. But, so I don't know what the terms of that are. Now, you wanna know sewers?
Yeah.
Okay. So sewer 1, no debt. Sewer 5 has debt.
I guess David had told you it didn't, was that right?
No, actually Jeff Logan said it different, didn't. David said, wait,
All right.
where's his email?
You know what?
Here.
Well, after
Okay.
after I wrote David and told him,
Okay. Here. No, he doesn't say any, he sent me an email afterwards, I'm trying to get clear about this. I believe that sewer 5 has a small amount of indebtedness that I believe is almost up. And I believe it's something in the neighborhood of $10,000. Now, I am not going to swear to this, but that's my belief.
Okay.
I hope that's true.
I thought that
As a
was
paper.
Sewer District 6.
Oh, okay.
That was referring to.
Well,
No, sewer
it's
district
$4,100 a year
Right.
plus interest.
For the whole district.
So, for sewer
I
5.
mean, on our tax bill, it's not onerous, but it's there right after year end.
So,
Right.
because of the amount, the 4,100 on an annual basis, it's probably for 2 or 30 years. Probably is, I remember when we developed the system.
Well, I thought they were either 25.
It's
I
a
thought they were
serial
25-year
bond.
bonds.
It's 25 or 30, it's in serial
But
bonds.
I guess it's 30. I hope it was 25. But I guess it's 30.
Okay, the other issue is about sewers is that the town has been loaning money to District 6.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
That's
I'll
probably
take a
not-
look, but
that's
I
a
do
really
not-
serious problem.
It's an
160,000.
Yeah, really serious
extreme
problem. That's been
problem.
going on for several.
And it needs to be, by law, I guess it needs to be repaid.
Sewer
By the end of the year,
6
it's supposedly.
has long-term bonds and short-term bonds.
Okay, but for our purposes, for now at least, can we agree that we're not including sewer 6 in the
I would say so
conversation?
myself. I would.
Is that, are we comfortable with that? Since sewer District 6 is really, it's such a different beast. And we really are not, there is a finance committee. We're not the finance committee.
Right, yeah.
So what we're supposed to be dealing with is the soft decision, let's say, and then the finance committee has to figure out what that means.
So
Okay, and-
you're asking if we can decide that Sewer District 6,
Remains.
whether we have other districts or not,
Right.
is not going to be included.
Right.
Okay, but
That's
the
what I would-
village sewer
Mhm.
has debt as well.
Right.
So, I have a mental block as to how we can talk about moving anyone into the village's existing district when the village has their own debt, and I know that the village keeps their debt, the town keeps their debt. But then if you consolidate a water district with no debt, but the village has debt, it would have to go by tax map number, I'm guessing, on the tax bill, not by the district. It would not be as simple a formula as the way that Carol is billed on her tax bill, because she's in a sewer district.
Right.
The,
So here, let's look at it from a different perspective. Let's let's just, from this perspective, let's just say that we, as our committee, decide that our recommendation is guided by, but not locked into the recommendations by the consultants. So if there are issues in here, for example, that each municipality owns its own debt, we are not bound by this. We're supposed to come up with, we're 4, 5, 6 citizens looking at this and saying, okay, well, what if we think about it this way? And then the umbrella committee, the finance committee, whatever. So we are not bound by this. I cleared that. We are not bound by this. That having been said, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think that I said something similar at our first meeting, and then just got dissuaded myself as I was going back over this, and then checked.
Yeah, may I see that for a second?
Yeah. It's bits and pieces.
Well, I probably,
Huh?
yeah, I have a copy of that.
Yeah, no, I know. So here's the thing. What if that the town pays 150% of what the village pays? So there's this 50% extra that the buyers.
You mean user fee?
Right, well, I mean, I pay a user fee also, so
Yeah, but
the distinction.
surcharge, or whatever it's called.
Okay,
Yeah.
surcharge,
Yeah.
okay. That surcharge, I'm wondering, if the surcharge is removed, if there's consolidation, and we're now all in one district, one district, one water district, one sewer district, and the rate at which everybody pays equalizes, which is what I would hope, then I have to believe that the amount that the town would still be paying less for water. Because I have to assume that built into this 150% is the cost of running the sewer plants and running the water plants and buying getting the water
Yes.
and doing all of that. So in the interests of being the one community, it seems to me, as many distinctions as can be removed as possible is a useful thing to do. Whether we can do that or want to do that across the board, given all of our different sidewalks, what remains to be seen. We said we'll discuss those separately. But it seems to me that if we can make a case for saying, no, we now have one water district, and we're all responsible for maintenance and repair, and the town's going to benefit. Even if the town is now in effect taking on the village debt, I'm guessing that they were already taking on the village debt, because otherwise why are they paying the surcharge?
Well,
Because the village chose to charge us out of just plain orneriness.
I
I
didn't
mean,
make that.
and I know you.
No.
And then secondly, because and then the town also charges the users for the maintenance costs that we in Sewer 5 have. So the village charges us extra to begin with, and then we had to add more to that, and that's where the 150% comes from.
Right. So if you take out, if you spread that across the whole board, and the fact of the matter is that the sewer system and the water system are always going to be costing money. They're going to need maintenance, they're going to need repair, they're going to need whatever they're going to need. And if we aren't consolidating, and the town is still paying, well, that cost is going to have to be somehow borne, passed on, shared anyway. So if the numbers, this is not to penalize the town. It's not like saying, oh, goody, we now have all these more people who are going to share the cost of what the village has to pay for water and stuff. But if in fact I'm right, and the town payers, by going to an equal rate, are paying everything but the surcharge in effect, what would then be the disadvantage to going to one district?
My sewer bills will probably go down, my user fees will go down.
Exactly.
I still think that the indebtedness should go with
District.
the hunk
Why?
that caused the bonds to be bought in the first place. But the user fee should be equalized. That's my own feeling.
But why should the,
Why should somebody in the village pay for my bonds and sewer 5? I think,
well, because you're also paying for,
Okay,
Mom.
I think that's a
Hmm?
legality. I don't think that's part of that. We don't have to follow what's in here. I think it's a legality as part of consolidation that whichever incurred the debt needs to keep the debt. So that when you consolidate,
those bonds,
I'm not paying for your sewer.
you shouldn't.
Right, and
Sure.
you're not paying for my village-wide. Okay, and
That's my,
I think that it may be a legal thing with consolidation, that I have to keep the 2 million, and Carol has to keep her maybe 10,000, that she might be down to.
well,
And then the
then,
user fee should be equalized.
Well, now I have, it's a whole different discussion. And it's that so let's say townwide village, but there's 5 districts. But the cost, okay, so everybody has their own debt that belongs to them. But now, the cost of running the water plant and running the sewer plant is not specifically charged to what used to be the village water and village sewer. It is
Common
charged across all what will now be like 8 or 9 districts. And the rates would be equalized, that, because the village would not be charging the town anymore, would be one entity with 8 or 9 districts.
Why wouldn't we
Sharing
just-
the
why-
cost.
Why wouldn't we, everybody who's on the sewer, except for sewer 6, why wouldn't everybody who's on the sewer just be one district? No matter whether you're in the old town, old village, or in the new village, why wouldn't we all be one sewer district? And then just that one hunk of us who's on debt, and your hunk, and you said there's no indebtedness in the sewer.
no, for
Just
the
that one
village
hunk.
there is.
Then with the
Sewer
village-
5 and village has sewer
Okay,
debt.
all right, then those two areas, they wouldn't be districts, but they would just be delineated geographically. People who live in those 2 areas would continue to pay off the debts on those areas. And then it would all be one big district as far as the user is concerned. It would all contribute the same thing to the maintenance, the upkeep of the plant, to the upkeep of the lines. And although we met into New York City's, that's the water though. We get billed for the sewer based on the water that we use on our well. You figure that one out. Our sewer
Yes.
bill is based on the water that comes out of our
Water
well to the
consumption.
meter,
Yes.
into the house. I mean, that's
Because it
what
then
other-
goes into the sewer treatment.
That's the theory. So that it's based on the water that we use from our well. So we have a divergence. So if I want to water my yard, it doesn't go through the house, and therefore it doesn't go through the meter, and therefore we don't have to pay for the sewer, for the water we use to, if you want to water the garden, for example. But most people don't. All their water goes through the house, and therefore it's metered, and then that's what the
Yep.
sewer bill is. But anyway, my basic contention is, why aren't we just one, except for 6, one big district of these 2 little areas that were formerly districts, paying off their indebtedness, and when they're done, we would really be one district. Does that make sense?
But how?
We know now who's paying, in my neighborhood, who's on the sewers. You know, by house, we know, not everybody is. There's an extension house.
Right.
Yeah, and that's, I'm sure the same thing is true in the village. So my
Well,
question
actually,
is,
in the
what's
village,
wrong with that?
In the village, everyone's required to be hooked up by local law, by code, to the to the sewer system.
Mhm.
I have a problem with that.
Okay,
Which is, if you do that, because at first that's what I was thinking the same thing. You know, that you would then have a water bill that had 3 categories instead of 2 categories, you know, your usage or however it would break down, because I don't know the talents of that. But then as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about the fact of the matter, you know, if you are currently paying 150%, how much of that 150% actually also goes to debt?
I understand what you're saying.
Because there would be no water system if there wasn't debt. And we could say, well, we're gonna eventually pay off that debt, but that assumes that there never has to be upgrades, there
Another
never
problem.
has to be work, there never has to be
Yeah.
anything done. So if you take the 150%, for me, it's kind of almost like unmasking what's really going on. So I don't know, you know, it's like, it's hard for me, it's hard for me to, so is it that I'm saying, is it that I'm saying, well, then, given that I pay the 100%, you know, I pay $100, and that includes indebtedness, that it includes maintenance, that it includes my use at a lower rate than yours,
Mhm.
and that's why it's $100.
Mhm.
You pay $150 because,
Yeah, I heard what you're saying.
right?
Yeah.
Of course, you're also, yeah. So if we you know, and of course legally, obviously, if there's no option, there's no option. We're not gonna reinvent the legal system about this. But if there was not a legal proscription to just simply say everything is everybody's,
You mean everybody pays anybody's debt?
everybody
I
pays
believe there is a legal
everybody's debt.
prescription for that.
Okay, well, that would make it easy.
Right, okay.
But if there isn't, I
Right.
guess, then I would like to see everybody pay, that we be truly one district, one water district, one sewer district.
Okay, I don't think we're talking about the fact that village residents pay, I guess what we're referring to is 100%. And the town residents pay 150%. I know that's how the code's written and all of that. I don't see it and I don't consider it, because that to me is not real. It's not a consideration, because if we decide on a consolidated district, the finance committee has to figure out the cost of water to the users based on what it costs for operations, debt load, personnel.
Right.
Okay. And if we decide to go district, the finance committee needs to determine that same cost.
Right.
But it's the cost of how much it costs to keep the district alive and running.
Right.
That's
some of
how
that
the
is the
rate.
indebtedness.
No, but that's how the rate is determined. What you're talking about, the 150% now, is simply because the village owns the water and sewer system and bills the town for it.
Right.
So I think that's out of the equation, because that's not gonna be a consideration when we're talking about one government.
Right, I understand,
Okay.
I think I understand.
Okay.
Let me say it a different way.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so, you said, when you said the 100% includes maintenance, the cost of the water, to deliver the water, indebtedness, right? You said
Mhm.
that, okay.
Mhm.
But if we're saying that the town, by virtue of paying 150%, is already paying the 100% plus the 50%, is that what we're saying? In other words, are we saying, and again, I mean, part of the problem is that this isn't, how the numbers break out isn't our bailiwick. That's the finance committee's bailiwick. The question is, what do we think this should look like outside of what legal restrictions there are? So my own personal feeling is that in the long run, if we do consolidate, the more we actually consolidate, the more we really will be able to function and act as one community. So on principle, I mean, I don't want anyone else's debt. I got enough of my own. It's not like I'm, rushing out here to say, oh, sure, I'll contribute. But on principle, it seems to me that there is a payoff. Maybe this isn't even, it's like, the whole point of the consolidation, or one of the key points, is to save everybody money.
Well, how would that work then if the sewer district in the village, one,
Right.
has indebtedness?
Mhm.
How would that save anybody in the village money if they had to keep their own indebtedness, if they had to pay?
Well, we have to keep our debt.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Don't do me a favor, just for the purpose of the conversation, don't do the legal, because obviously that throws, then it makes this whole issue moot.
Okay, then I think our first question should be then that the umbrella committee needs to go to their consultants and find out,
Are we legally able to do this?
yeah, can you, if all the waters were to be consolidated, is there a mechanism to isolate the debt onto the tax bills? Because the debt is the only thing you're allowed to tax for in water and sewers. That's it, only debt, not operations, nothing else.
Well, when you were back in the village, the clerk, didn't when you prepared the budget, when you figured the rates, you knew you had factored in what the indebtedness is going to be for that year, what would be paid off on the bonds, right?
Yes, I did.
So you would know what was 2% or 8% or 15% of the rate was going toward bond indebtedness. You would know that when you made the budget, right?
No, well, I knew the amount that was due in the ensuing year. I knew what the interest rate was and a budget for
that
that.
dollar.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So that was factored into the
Mhm.
rates. So I would think.
No, not in the rates. Into, that is
Just the
straight up
taxes.
tax.
Does that go in the village's,
Tax bill.
on the
You're
tax
allowed
bill?
to
Okay,
tax
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
debt
And what-
only.
And what you're saying is, it couldn't go on the town's tax.
Can't go on the town's tax.
But,
The revenue that is collected
Right.
from the village billing the town
right,
was calculated as an offset
Ah,
right.
to keep the rates at a
Right.
certain level in the village.
But if they'd known that, they already squawked for years and years about being billed by the village at extraordinary rates,
Right.
extortionate rates.
Right.
And that would even make it worse.
So, but that's really but that's really what isn't that another way of saying what we're talking about if we leave aside the legal issue of indebtedness, being able to be, merged? Because that's what we're really talking about, is somehow merging it or whatever. So is the question really that we're saying we can't make a recommendation until you tell us the legal parameters. The question is, is there a legal mechanism that allows the merged water district, if we go to one water district, the merged water district to take on the indebtedness across the now new entire water district instead of billing it separately to the original communities? Does the community disappear? You know, the legal bounds of that?
Like, Carol's gotta keep our debt, we have to keep our debt.
That is a definite. The indebtedness has to
The
stay within the
indebtedness,
district.
the people who currently own the debt have to pay off that debt. So is there a mechanism that if it were a consolidated district, is there a mechanism to pull out each indebtedness sector? That would be my question.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
but
what-
then if
I
you
wouldn't
do
call
that-
them districts in the old sense of what we call them, what we usually think of districts. We would say them geographical areas or geographical boundaries, but in the households within that, and businesses in those areas.
Right.
But the users would pay, the user fee would be based equally to the whole new area serviced by water and the whole new area serviced by sewer.
Right, and
That's what I think would be.
that could go down. Or, on the other hand, if the cost of running the water plant and running the sewer plant and the personnel needed for all these districts now was run down based on number of households and consumption, or, you know, a formula, a fair formula.
Yeah.
Some districts might go up, some districts might go down. I mean, obviously, the village has the most users. There's about 1,000 customers, and you do not have 1,000 customers out there. And poor little old sewer 6, you can count them on one hand,
Yeah.
which
Well,
I know we're not talking about. I know we're not. I'm
But,
just saying they're all different sizes.
right, but if at this point, if I understood you correctly, if at this point, the current system means that the rate that townspeople pay for water, in effect, goes towards the village paying its indebtedness.
She's saying no.
But that can't happen.
No, under the old way, because you can set the rate, you can't.
No, it goes towards the cost of operations and personnel.
That's what she's saying.
And that does not include indebtedness.
No, the debt is a tax.
Because even the village's usage fee does not include the indebtedness, because that's go on the tax bill.
Yeah, because you're allowed to.
So what you're paying in the village for your quarter or your monthly bill does not include the indebtedness. 'Cause that goes in your annual tax bill. And my indebtedness goes on my annual tax bill.
Village tax, it doesn't.
On your village tax bill. And mine goes on my town tax bill. And my usage I pay every quarter.
Well, no,
Your indebtedness
actually,
goes on your tax bill.
they
I know
are
that's what-
using it
But not in
to,
my quarter.
they are using it because they're not charging any taxes in water and sewer. They're only charging taxes in the general fund. So they're not charging village residents water and sewer for the debt, although you're allowed to.
Okay, so how does that change? How does that change?
So you see, the village is only charging tax in the general fund. So they are actually using the revenue. They have enough in revenue from their own user fees and what they charge SUNY and the town to support their budgetary appropriations.
But not the indebtedness.
It includes the
That's
indebtedness.
the thing.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
you're absolutely
so,
right.
okay. So, let me say it and tell me if I'm saying it correctly. Let's go back to the 100% and the 150%.
Okay.
Okay. The 100% that as a village resident I pay includes, however it's categorized, list includes indebtedness, includes maintenance and personnel to, and includes my usage of water, the cost of my water, right? These three things. Okay.
But
The town, wait, the town residents who only pay a user fee. But the fact of the matter is that the reason the user fee is 50% more than what I pay is in order to be used for maintenance, personnel,
Okay.
and,
Well, but that is what, the village charges the town 150% of what the village rate is.
right.
That doesn't mean that that's the rate that the town charges their users.
Okay,
See,
but
that's-
okay, wait, I want to make sure that so let me go back to my then, again, legal restraints aside. In effect, the town residents are already paying towards the indebtedness, their share of the indebtedness,
Yes,
if you will.
because their revenues are
Okay.
included to, yes.
So if we can go to one district, then we've spread it across more people. The assumption is that the town rate would effectively go down because, well,
I don't know that because, and I hate to, because we live in two different geographical locations.
That's okay.
Okay, but the difference is like, so Carol in sewer 5 may have $10,000 left.
Right.
So she could be looking at that being paid off in 2 years, okay?
right,
And let me see what the village burden in sewer, because Carol's gonna be assuming that sewer debt, whatever it is, which is $244,000 a year. Is gonna
but
be
she's in
added.
effect already paying it.
Well, oh yeah, that's true. You're right.
But if in the village, if her bill includes the indebtedness, why is she also, her indebtedness part of the tax bill? On the village tax, and she gets her village tax.
It's not on the tax bill.
Well, you're
but
not,
legally-
you're not taxed.
She changed her mind.
No, because
no,
you
no.
legally are allowed to charge debt, but they don't do it.
Okay.
That could be because they're one district and in the town you have multiple districts and you charge the debt out per district and we
It
don't
used to
have
be
it.
said frankly, when the village sent the town its water bill, you know, that it used to be said, I'll just say, it used to be said, that the village was charging extortionate fees because they get away, since they owned the water plant and we needed the water, or the sewer plant,
Right.
that they could charge us whatever we wanted and we were at their mercy.
Right. And we happen to pick 150%.
Well,
I mean, in
and then
effect.
then we, the town, had to add on our own costs, because we have our, you know, buildings and grounds people
Operations,
who
right,
work
right.
on who check the mains, who
Right.
do all read the meters, the whole bit. So we have our own expenses too in the town.
Right.
But it was said, and I will freaking as neutral sounding as I can, it was said that the towns, that the village, mercy of the village, if the village wanted to charge us 3 times what they charge the village residents, we couldn't do anything about it because they own the water plant and the sewer plant.
But you bring up an interesting point, because one would assume that, however, and this is certainly not our bailiwick, that the personnel costs, if we're consolidated, if we do a consolidation that includes a consolidation of the water districts, that the personnel costs
Yes.
could go down.
Oh, yeah. And so every time, every year we went through this, we would get this big argument with the village about why they were charging us so much, and they usually had, I'm trying to be as, you know, even as I can. They would have, they would,
With
That's
friends.
fine.
yeah, I mean, on television.
And the rest of the
On
room.
television,
I know his-
We'll see this tomorrow morning. That you know, the village always had a rationale for why they needed to charge us so much extra.
And actually, maybe they did.
Well, and then the town always says, no way, but, you know, we're at their mercy, so that's just the history.
But now we're kind of sitting here looking at the numbers and saying, hey, you know, maybe.
Well, the town, there's no question the town has expenses,
Right.
but the town also has to pay what the village charges them when they turn the water off, you know,
Right.
and the sewer plant, you can't do that,
Right.
so you're sort of at the mercy. And the villages, and I'm not saying that they were terribly greedy, but the town always felt they were being charged excessively, more than the village could really justify charging us. That's what the argument
Okay.
was. And this went on for years
Okay,
and
this is out on the table now.
years and years and years.
We
This
got
went
it.
on.
We got it, right? We got
Yes.
it. Okay, do you have any insights
But-
or anything you would like to share?
Well, actually, there's the expertise for these matters generally lies with the village and town engineer and DPW superintendent and others at the town. I don't really. I've been trying to look at the maps and I think I'm not sure if they could be consolidated into one. Those are areas I don't have great expertise in.
I think that we really need Dave. I mean, it was a good start, but I think we really need Dave Clauser because Dave, he does all the water and sewer in the town.
He did the village too.
Yeah.
Is he your engineer?
No,
Not your
Bernier and Larios
Oh,
is
okay.
in the village.
I thought
But
he was not
Dave
working.
Dave is involved with the planning.
Dave
board.
is the planning board and
Okay.
building department engineer, and therefore, on a lot of the development, Dave has a bird's eye view of any water and sewer extensions and developments that have gone on, and so I think Dave Clauser would be ideal for the water and sewer discussion.
Well, I don't want to speak for him,
Okay.
but I did talk with him when I picked up the maps, and I did say, you know, what would your sense of the world be? So, given that I didn't take notes and that I'm not willing to speak to him for him, I'm not
Okay.
willing to say what he's.
Oh.
You know, I'm not
You're not willing to.
confident
Okay.
that I'm
alright,
saying what he said.
Okay.
But I will say that I came away, maybe because I wanted to, but I came away with the impression that he thought that this would be a rational way
Okay.
to approach it.
Okay.
But again, this is, you know, by no means me quoting
To
Dave.
make one district.
Okay. Okay.
And keep it
Now,
together separate.
Was that just water?
No, in both instances,
Okay.
and not District 6, not
Yes.
Sewer District
Oh.
6. Okay, here's
Okay,
a thought.
Sewer District 6 needs help.
Yeah, yes, but I don't think that it's our, even though
I
we're
agree.
charged.
I'm just saying.
No, I agree with you.
Okay.
Okay, I have, I don't know what time it is, what time is it? It's 7:56.
Whatever the clock.
I don't know, but
The clock's going, I go see the
It
daylight.
used to be right.
It used to be one right there, along with the seal, that's.
okay.
Anyway,
I have in the interests of moving this committee along through the rest of the stuff we have to do, because we still have to decide how we want to handle some of the other stuff for future meetings. In the interests of doing that, I propose, and I'm perfectly willing to back off of this, I propose that we write a very rough draft of the portion of our report that's due in November that deals with sewer and water. So that we can say, okay, we've put this over here, Dave will vet it, the financial committee will vet it, whatever, but we have something down that may well stand for what we do.
But why do we need the financial committee to bid it?
Oh, well, they're
tax.
gonna put together an actual one budget. So actually, every committee that's working independently will put the
Well,
stuff.
I thought it was the charge of this committee to see, yes, we think it should be one
Yes,
district
yes,
or
yes,
not.
except for the legal questions that, in other words, I'm not saying we should write this and say this is our recommendation, only to find out that legally we can't recommend this. That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying, could we draft something?
Well, do we feel that we would like
That's what
consolidated,
Where's Amaya?
That's what I'm asking.
consolidated waters, consolidated sewer 1, sewer 5, and village sewer. If a mechanism was in place for independent taxation based on debt.
That would not be what I would want.
I would like to hear what Dave would say, since he's in the,
Do you wanna wait a month? I'll try to talk to the legal.
Well, I mean, we may not, I certainly don't want
And
to
then
push
we'll wait-
force anything, but I am concerned about.
Okay, so in
time.
September, after the September meeting, we should be able to go, bam, to rough draft.
Well, that's why I was wondering if we wrote a rough draft now, then in the September meeting, we could take, first of all, we could send it to Dave. And second of all,
Do
wait,
we
I just
wanna
want
do 2 scenarios, because
we
what
could
it
do
might be
that. I'm just
illegal?
looking for. No, if it's illegal, wait. If it's illegal, we don't have anything to recommend. If it's, I can't get my calendar. I love this
Actually,
calendar.
you're right, because
Then
then we have districts. We have 5 water and
And let
4
them figure out how to
sewers.
bill us.
Right.
I'm assuming that underlying this, I'm assuming that, that we do not need to incorporate, they do not need to be totally contiguous, the properties within the districts. In other words, they're obviously properties separating one district from another, whether you look at water or sewer.
No, we're calling them contiguous. If you're looking at this one,
Well, for example, the water district map.
Water
sure.
District 6.
Go ahead.
we're
Oh,
not
I
talking
wasn't
about-
looking at 6, but
We're calling
Okay.
these contiguous
I see.
because the water comes through here. So we are in effect all connected. Whether we're geographic, whether the lawns match up or not.
I know what I want.
Oh,
What?
good, what?
So the town-wide village.
Village-wide.
the new village.
It's village-wide,
It's-
town-wide village. Isn't
Town,
it?
you're right.
Okay.
Yes, dear. Remember, this is not set in stone. This is just to be able to leave tonight saying, maybe we've accomplished
Something.
this.
Okay, so it would be time, I'm guessing, that a new contract would need to be negotiated this month. Because that contract exists between the village and New Paltz.
Not our ballot, I don't
What
think.
about
I think
the city of
that's
New York?
finance.
Well, I think it would, when
The
it's,
city
when
of New
they're
York is
in
from
the sewer
1990.
district.
Yes,
Yeah, I
does
know.
need to be renegotiated,
It still hasn't been
absolutely.
anything done to it.
Yes.
We do not have any control over, when you start talking about the arrangements that are made with SUNY, that's just not our,
But see, when you're saying that, but yet a moment ago you said that financially we have to,
Well, we
Look
don't
at
have
this.
to determine money. We do, and we don't know the legal. I'll try to find out the legal. I'll try to get in touch with Ken Bonington.
Well,
You were there.
Are we down to 2 things? We have, we'll take sewer for starters, it's a little
Okay.
simpler. One district, everything paid for district-wide, indebtedness due to each one.
Okay,
Or, that's A, or one district with the geographical areas that used to be, like sewer 5, and the village where it was indebted. That those areas, the residents in those areas will continue to pay off the indebtedness that they had. So the first one, I said, everybody pays everything, including
Okay.
indebtedness. The second one, that the 2 existing geographical areas that have indebtedness, the households, businesses, whatever, in those districts would continue to pay those off until the bonds are paid off.
Okay, here's my problem with that.
Okay, well,
My problem with that is that, that's not us making a recommendation. That's the current, if you will, or obvious scenario.
well, my question then that's the choice that we have to make.
I'm
Right,
sorry.
right. So, I think we do, so to make a good recommendation, we just need the answer to the legal question
Right,
as to whether or not that debt can be promoted.
okay. And so what
And
I'm,
if it can't, our decision is ever so easy.
Right.
And if it can, we can make a recommendation.
And the finance committee
That's
goes
right.
right.
so my request,
Okay.
just for purposes of keeping us on track to get this done, my request is that, in effect, the second one that Carol is saying is the one that happens if if the indebtedness has to stay in its own territory. The first one is what we could recommend if we chose to, if that's not the case. So we don't need to draft anything about the second one because it's either a given or it isn't.
Right.
But if we could draft something about the first, if, with the understanding that, okay, we may have wasted the 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it's gonna take to draft it, if it turns out not to be legal, the benefit would be, okay, now we actually have something, I can email it to Dave, and we can maybe say, okay, this part of our thing is over, and then we can go on to, oh joy of joy, sidewalks and lighting. So it isn't like we don't have a whole lot of other issues that we have to deal with, and so that's my, as chair, I suppose I'm saying.
Well, aren't the other ones, like I haven't, I should probably even say anything, I wasn't here before, but aren't the other two issues, we'll say sidewalk and lighting, sort of like this?
Yes, but
So
I
there's-
think that people may have,
Well, I'm not sure.
Well, I think there's less legalities attached to those than water and sewer. And there's not direct debt attached to those.
There isn't
Nor
like water.
districts.
Nor districts
district.
like water and sewer.
Nor the formation of districts. In other words, sidewalks and lighting.
well, these are only the sidewalks in the village.
Right.
There are some sidewalks in the town, I thought.
Going up Main Street.
Well, I wasn't aware that they
Yeah,
were
Cherry Hill has
by
a
district
section.
formation.
Behind
rather
Bus
than
Stop.
by developers and
Behind
so
Bus
on.
Stop.
And-
Excuse me, I didn't mean it.
That's all.
yeah, we can do
Maintenance.
Yeah.
Well, actually, a lot of times, depending on the community, sidewalk maintenance is required to be done by the property owner.
Right.
Who has the sidewalk and adjacent to the right of way running in front of the.
So you're
Right.
saying that we're not, you think that this is gonna be a moot issue?
Well, no, I don't think that there are sidewalk districts in the town or, as far as lighting districts, I can't be sure, I just,
There are not lighting districts currently in the town of New Paltz, which really surprises me because I've never worked for a town that did not have
Wait,
specific.
so you're saying town or, you're saying
Town.
town intentionally?
Town.
Okay.
Town lighting districts are common because, for example,
See,
My-
this is a can.
my friend in Cherry Hill
Yeah, but the sewers,
may have streetlights because they are geographically located closer to Main Street and density, whereas west of the Wallkill, you are not gonna find any streetlights, okay? It's almost intentional. West of the Wallkill, you're not gonna find a sidewalk, but like Carol said, behind Pasquale's, they built that new professional building. I believe it's part of the town code that when you make a new development, you must include sidewalks. It's part of the future walkability.
Right.
Okay, so although Carol lives in the area, they have a strip of sidewalk that probably leads to nowhere right now.
true.
Okay. Okay. So on the other hand, so that's like saying, okay, Cherry Hill would have a sidewalk district for the slab in front of the professional building behind, Pasquale's.
Except that
But
Kurt
not-
is saying that the
well-
owner would be responsible.
Well, what
for
I'm
the
No, no,
saying-
no, I
building.
agree,
Oh.
Yeah, it
and
is.
I don't know if it's in the town code, that's definitely in the village.
In other words, a lot of sidewalks and lighting, especially on, of course, private property, commercial development, even some residential lands will have sidewalk and lighting established. They may be done through a homeowners association, or of course the sidewalks the maintenance and even replacement sometimes may fall to those who own the property that fronts with the sidewalk.
And
I think that's what it is in
downtown.
town, I know.
Downtown?
this was
In the
discussed
village?
back that was
In the
proposed, I think
village,
that's the way it is.
those sidewalks, I believe the maintenance, as per our code, part of the maintenance is required to be done by property owners. However, I don't believe the replacement and repair of sidewalks is. That varies from community to
And I'm
community.
not sure the replacement in the village is the property owner's responsibility.
It's
No,
not.
it's not,
It's
it's the
maintenance.
village, and they're very expensive.
Right.
Right.
So I only want to just say, I think this is a conversation that we may have to have,
Okay.
and I want to leave time for it.
Okay, well then, can I bring up something that I think might be a quickie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
You don't want to just do this little drafty, like 3-sentence draft, is that what you're saying? Are we?
I would want to speak with Dave, and hopefully he'll be at the next meeting.
Right.
And Jean will have looked into the legal question, and then it'll only take, 5 minutes to draft something then.
Okay, or alternatively, we can draft it, I can send it to Dave, then if he isn't at the next meeting, he still would be able to have given us feedback on it. Jean can find out about the legal stuff, and then we either know that we're not pursuing it, or Dave has said yes, but, or and if.
So,
We don't, in other words, we don't have, I would rather have something to give Dave for him to respond to.
so you've given
than-
two things here, that one district with one rate, or one district with one rate plus the indebtedness in geographic locations.
Right.
And what about a third option, that we keep the water district as the water districts as it is, and not consolidate?
Well, if we have, villages can't have districts, is that right? Or you can't, I guess you can have
No,
districts.
the
You can't have
village,
districts.
no, no, no.
So I never can tell, this is part of my ignorance, well, the difference between a town-wide village and a village-wide town, is there?
I
know
think what
some-
it, I think effectively what it does is it gives the rights and privileges of each of the
Yes,
government structures.
but one has
to
superiority over the
all.
other.
No, I don't think so.
Well, you
My
do-
Well, in
under-
the towns
You
I
do
stuck
remember-
with, those, that they only met as a town at one meeting a year, and all the
Yeah.
rest of the year they met as village board.
Right,
Right.
now,
So the
remember,
village definitely ran it.
out
But-
of 1,600 municipalities in this state, only 5 of them have a coterminous town village.
Mhm.
And even then, there's 3 types within those 5, and 3 of those exist within Westchester County. But I guess what I'm getting at is, you can choose to be a town-wide village or a village-wide town, as I understand it. However, that may be more of a distinction without a substantive difference.
Mhm.
As you said, there would be one meeting of either a board of trustees or a town board each year, but the formation would be 364 days a year, one or the other, and I think we can.
But on the day when you're the other, you can make the designations of that. My understanding, and I can probably find it, I mean, it's in here, and I'm more confident even than my conversation with Dave, that the point of doing what we said we were doing was that by doing that, we have the right to operate as both.
Yeah.
And pick whichever one we want for whichever category we're talking about. So if we're talking about, having districts and that falls under the town thing, then the part of our name that says we're town allows us to do that, and vice versa. I mean, that's.
Well, it certainly may come in handy with regard to qualifying for certain grants, and that could be part of the appeal, but it's pretty esoteric stuff.
Yeah, but CGL never brings us back to the problem of an appointed clerk or elected one, because then what do we decide? We had decided it was going to be based on village law. We would have an appointed clerk.
Appointed.
Yeah,
Right,
and we
right,
would
right,
appoint.
but-
But so therefore that's shut down the town. The town allows for elected and an elected highway superintendent.
But,
And we
but
go
that,
and we-
but that's my point exactly. If there's something that the town allows that a village doesn't, we can similarly say, we're for the intention of putting this into place, we're a town. For the intention of putting this into place, we're a village, because we're both, we're each.
Well, I thought we had just pretty much decided we were going to be a village. We're going to
We're,
have a village
we're a
law.
village town-wide, which means that we're also a town, because we have to be a town.
Yeah, but we also agreed that we were going to have an appointed clerk, appointed highway
Right,
superintendent.
right,
Yeah,
right,
and
right,
that's
right.
village, that's
I
not
think
town.
we're-
That's a
And we're going to
village.
have a fire, we're going to have a fire.
Volunteer fire,
Right.
that
All
is
those
a
things are-
village.
So we really discounted the town, almost all town law.
Yeah, you really did.
No, I wasn't happy about it. I'm still not I'm really convinced.
Okay, so while you're looking for that,
Yeah, no, I'm not.
What's your
looking for
quickie?
it.
my
Huh?
quickie
Yeah.
had to do with emergency services, meaning
Fire.
police, fire, and ambulance. And at the last meeting, some people felt, I was the one who said, did you want to invite them to a meeting?
Right.
Okay, and so I've been thinking about it for the past month. And, I don't feel a need to meet with them. Because I personally don't feel that meeting with any of either the police or the fire department or the ambulance, the rescue squad, that I'm going to feel that we should make districts for any one of the three.
I agree with you. No,
I think it should be village-wide. Everyone benefits.
New village-wide.
Yes, town-wide village, police,
Right.
fire,
and
rescue
emergency
squad.
Right.
Everyone pays, let's,
I agree with that.
now, how do you feel about that? Because I know you sat on that committee as well with, for that 2 years plus. How do you feel about the emergency services?
Well, we only discussed the fire department. I mean, the town's all, the police and the emergency and rescue squad are already town-wide, so there was nothing there.
Now, well, the rescue squad next year, we're going back to that two-way thing.
Oh, are you? Oh,
Yes.
right.
Two-way thing.
The village is paying their share and the town is paying their share.
Share is what, the
Based on the
word,
number
the
of
operative
calls,
word
probably.
you're saying is share.
Is it based on the number of calls?
No, that's the fire department. The rescue squad is a little more convoluted formula, and I think it might be population or something.
But,
Well, but that-
right now, the police serve the
Everyone.
existing village and the existing town.
Right.
Why can they not just continue to do what they're doing?
Right.
And
Right.
even though the emergency services are charging the village and the town, they're still serving.
Okay, but
The
my
two.
understanding is that, is this what you're saying? That right now we have an intermunicipal agreement
With?
vis-à-vis the rescue squad.
Yes, but there will be another one, but it's just
But
that
there
it'll
won't be one. If we're one government,
No, there will still be one, because the village has an intermunicipal agreement, the town has an intermunicipal agreement. The years that the town paid the bill and the village didn't, the town and the rescue squad had an intermunicipal agreement. And you paid through your town taxes. The difference is when the village pays their share, you pay in your village taxes, not your town taxes.
okay, but when we have one government,
You still
if we have
need
one,
an intermunicipal agreement with the rescue squad because they're for profit, they're private,
So
they're not
what-
municipal.
but I don't understand why we would need an intermunicipal agreement if we're only one municipality.
The
Yeah, contract.
intermunicipal, a contract,
contract.
yeah, the intermunicipal is not between the town and the village.
No, okay, but
You need a contract with the rescue squad.
right,
Maybe
but the
intermunicipal
point
is the wrong
is,
word.
the point is that the new government
The new government
will have a contract.
Right.
So there's in a sense, nothing for us to decide about that.
Right.
So,
Okay.
right?
And in being a townwide village, you can continue having
Fire
a
district.
volunteer
A volunteer.
fire department.
Yes, sorry.
With whom you have a contract, right?
Yes,
No,
no, I
you
was
don't
still
have a
Okay,
thinking.
you run, okay, that's right, you run the
Right.
village, you run the fire department.
Oh, yeah, the village has a.
I keep thinking of Cycle Lady as the village, since you left the town.
And the police,
And I left the
Under duress,
village.
under my duress.
He didn't duress.
and the police will be, instead of the town, it will be the new government.
The new government.
Right. So in a sense, you're right, we don't have to do anything about that.
Right.
So visiting with them,
Okay,
Or is it
except
going
that I felt that
As a
maybe
courtesy.
some members felt like it. I don't, first of all, I don't think that, a lot of them have other jobs as well as providing these, other than the police department, providing these personal services, but the rescue squad and the fire department, they have other jobs and frankly, I'm busy.
right, no, I'm,
So
look,
if
you
you
know,
wanna
I
hash
wanna
out
just tell
water
you
and
something.
sewer and
Wait,
sidewalks.
I wanna say,
Okay.
we are not, it's not my understanding that we are required to meet for the next 4 months or whatever it is. What we're obligated to is to give them a report by November. If we can give them a
Yeah.
report next week
Yeah.
or in next month, that's good.
Then if you're in sync with me on the emergency services.
I
mean,
am.
I mean,
I
that's,
I
I think
am.
it's all village-wide.
I am.
I
I'm
don't
in
need
sync.
I don't need a district.
There has to be
I'm in
new,
The new
Village.
government
new government.
Deals with it.
wide.
Right, okay. Cool.
Which
But
brings
you
us
know.
back to sewers and water.
Well, I mean, in effect, all here, let me try it this way, right? I would be proposing to say something like, okay, can you do this because I'll forget what I
Yes,
said?
certainly.
Okay, something like, under consolidation, unless this is precluded for legal reasons, the water district and the sewer district, with the exception of sewer district 6, would each function as one district each, right? So far, so good, right? And there would be no, and the indebtedness, any outstanding indebtedness, again, not precluded legally, would be absorbed into the district, and the same with the savings that would accrue.
Okay. Yeah, that part I don't think you can get away with, but okay.
But are you willing for us to say that's our recommendation unless Dave says, what, are you out of your mind?
No, I'll check with the legal.
Yes,
I
yes,
really
yes. No,
think
that's fine,
a
that's fine,
no.
that's fine.
Only
That's
because
fine.
I guess I recall hearing, but I don't know if it's entirely true that that the debt would need to be reconciled before we could actually truly join those under one a unified government.
Right, but I think that has to do with assets and liabilities. I don't think that has to do with you have infrastructure debt. I think I still own mine and Carol owns hers.
Okay.
Me,
Yeah.
Ellen, and
But
Ann
if-
own ours.
But if we had to, which we don't, if we had to submit our final report right now, and Dave was sitting here signing off on this, if it reads explicitly with, without the limits or whatever the word what I said before,
Legal.
legal, if there are no legal constraints that disallow this, that our little group here, our happy bunch of campers, will recommend one district for each of these two things, with the debts being somehow or other, I mean, I don't know what the technicalities would be, subsumed into the district. So we would have one district, we would have one indebtedness, even if it has separate pieces, and we would have one user's fee, and we would have presumably one set of employees.
Well, I don't, I'm not going on this Canadian now, I don't know who I am or not, but I have
I
trouble.
hope you
I
are.
don't
You
think
are
you should,
coming
I don't think you should have to pay for my bonds in sewer 5. I think I
Right,
should pay for
and
my bonds. in sewer
I
5.
am on board with the exception of debt. And so I need to find out an answer to my legal question
Okay.
before I support what you
And
say.
I would,
So we will
I would
like-
want to speak to
In
Dave.
terms of consolidating employees, consolidating the fact that the village uses environmental consultants, outsiders to run the water and sewer plants, because we're gonna need somebody to do that. And, if the alternative was to take that whole cost and split it down between 9 districts based on a formula of household or consumption or a little bit of both, and then they all have to own their own debt, then I would be okay with that. In other words, that everybody at that point, not just the village's district, has to support the cost of plant ownership. You see what I'm saying?
No, I lost you right there.
I have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Who pays for the village indebtedness for the water system that everybody uses?
The village does.
Then why just because it was the village's before it started being used by the town, why would the town users not we wouldn't have the system without the indebtedness, just as we wouldn't have it without the maintenance. So the distinction.
Okay, you lost me there. We wouldn't have what system?
Let's say the water system.
The water plant up on.
The only way we
Right,
got
yeah.
the water plant was by bonding for it.
Yeah.
Or however, loans, whatever we did.
Right, that,
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when the way we have it now, that's shared by town residents under the guise of a different user fee than what we pay as a user fee. So you
Mhm.
pay for your water,
Mm-hmm.
and Carol pays for her water, but she pays more
Plus,
for her
yeah.
water.
but Carol doesn't
because-
have water.
Well,
Well, you
sewer.
bill for it though.
Yeah.
It's- she- Her
I-
point, her point's okay.
It's, you
That's
know,
all.
so, but Harry does.
Okay.
Right, so, so if you say the village owns its, the people in the village own that debt, and the people in the town don't own that debt, but we're all paying the same user rate, then the people in the town who are now paying a lower user rate than they're paying are not paying anything
Right.
towards the fact that this thing got constructed and is available.
Which enabled them to have water in the first place.
Exactly. So whether right now we're paying for the debt, and they're, if you will, reimbursing us some amount of that because it's built into their user fee.
Mhm.
I'm saying, we're gonna say we are now one district because we are one community, because that's what we're doing. If that's the case, then we don't need the masquerade of, you guys are gonna pay a different rate than we're gonna pay, but really it's because you're paying off our bond in effect, right? We're just saying, hey guys, we have this water system, and it costs X amount to build it, and it costs X amount to run it, and it costs X amount for personnel, and it costs X amount to use the water. It's all gonna go into a pot, it's gonna be divided up among us, we are all gonna pay this.
Including the indebtedness.
Included the indebtedness. At the same time, if the Johnny-come-lately town users are taking on that debt directly now, explicitly, let's say. Well, if you had been around when the water system was being built, we'd have been having to pay for you to have pipes, because you'd have been, if we had always been one district, we'd have been paying for your pipes. The system would have been paying for your pipes.
And if the indebtedness can be spread throughout
Right.
the new government, the whole district, you would be losing your small indebtedness but you would also be taking on the village's large indebtedness.
which they take on anyway. But the point is that if we started from scratch now and we said, okay, we're now this whole community and we're building a water system, right? I would still be paying for your pipes.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're not. I don't know whether it makes any difference or not. I mean, another thing, in reality, the sewer, trying to go back to sewer 5, those bonds may be paid off by the time this whole, if we ever get to this
You're
point.
right, you're absolutely right.
It may well be
Yeah.
paid off and it'll be a moot question.
Right, right.
That's what I'm trying to find out from Patty, how much longer we have to pay them.
Right.
A little bit of the indebtedness.
Right.
And then, as we said, several times, in reality, the town's been paying, I've been paying for the sewer plant too, to that higher rate.
Right.
Right.
So it seems to me that if one doesn't get bogged down in some even not real distinctions, that we simply go to a very simple mechanism that says, we're all paying for what we got here, folks.
Right, but I thought the results of the study was that with a coterminus is that village residents, because we have the predominance of services, because we pay the additional tax, we're gonna end up with districts, multiple districts.
You lost me.
And the coterminous?
Because, yes, and there's a page in there where it outlined when
Oh, yeah, I know,
the
centralized and
budgets
decentralized.
yes.
Yeah.
Which page is this?
Well, the decentralized and centralized, they.
Right, oh, yes,
That-
there was the option between a unitary
Yes.
coterminous and
Yes.
decentralized coterminous. And the unitary does what we're saying we could do here. I have no, but it's in the, this is an abbreviated, maybe it's, but there were other, if we went explicitly to unitary, I believe that there were other issues that we don't necessarily feel the same way
Just
about.
13 or 14 or something like that.
I'm on page 15, and it's a lot of special districts.
Yeah.
Under which,
The final.
Yeah.
Now, the town already has existing stormwater districts. So Fairweather Consulting was recommending water and sewer. And what are the asterisks? Okay. So, I
so
don't
you're talking
know.
about scenario one
There
and
was a
scenario
lot.
two, right?
No, well,
Yeah,
yeah.
on this chart, it
Yeah.
breaks it, it calls it
Yeah.
scenario one and scenario two.
Okay, so in scenario 1,
But I don't think that, but they didn't recommend unitary, did they? They recommended decentralized, where we still have the option for what we want to treat in a unitary fashion. And, as I say, I was told we are not bound by this.
Yeah.
So we were not told to deal with, how the central garage and equipment maintenance is dealt with. That's not in our purview. Our purview is
Yeah.
really very explicit. Sewer, water, lighting, and sidewalk benefit districts, which are only separated by an artificial town-village boundary. And by benefit districts, that's to say the people who use. So people who live in the town who don't get water are not part of this conversation at all. In a unitary, I think they would be. I think the cost would be spread across everybody in the town village.
but I thought what we were looking at is a unitary coterminous townwide village.
No, I thought that what we were looking at is the other one, the
Centralized. Centralized.
Yes, thank you, decentralized. Which still gives us the option to do different things with the different, just, it doesn't mandate that we have to have districts. We are having a district, but we're only having District 1, in effect. So, but for something else, we might not want
But
one.
no, that wouldn't be a district, so. Now you're saying no district.
Well, we are in effect
It's
saying no
because
district, but doesn't,
You know, Du Bois Road's not gonna be in this, one of our sewer districts. We're still gonna have a district. We can call it whatever we want. Like the guy said the other night, you can call it Manhattan, you don't have to call it New Paltz, you can call it whatever you want, but it'll still be an area, a geographical area that's being
Right.
supplied with water
right,
and or sewer.
right,
But out in, you know, Henry Du Bois Road, not Drive, Henry, you know, Du Bois Road,
right,
or Jansen Road, or.
Right. they're not in the
They're
district.
not- They won't, they'll still be slightly separate, they won't be paying anything toward this.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Which might be, but might not be what we want when it comes to sidewalks and lighting. Because I think that there are several ways of looking at that, and I've tested some of them out just casually hither and yon, and they get very heated responses.
Yeah.
So I think this could be, I think having time to actually parse this conversation about sidewalks and lighting is not gonna be a bad thing to have. I'm delighted to see Kurt's fingers moving. So I'm feeling like it would be very easy to recapture the language or appropriate language for a final report. So I'm feeling less like I need to have it on a piece of paper on my piece of paper that says possible final draft. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I'm feeling better about that.
Okay.
When you send these notes out, Dave will get these notes.
Yes.
So we can, in fact, could I ask you to even like call attention to it so that Dave knows that we really want
want help.
feedback? Could he give
Yes.
us feedback on this?
I think I'm clear on the
Great.
specifics that
We're,
could
we're,
be.
Great.
we're waiting for Dave.
Yes.
Yeah. Great.
And actually, I wouldn't mind, Ellen, even just giving you a quick call to just confer with you before I pass the notes on,
Sure,
just to make
sure,
sure
sure,
that
Sure, that's fine. So
Thanks, Kurt.
yeah, so it's
So-
possible, wait,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
possible that we're done
Okay.
with this.
All right.
And it's also possible that the fact of the matter is that we don't have any options because it's legally, we can't do what we're saying, in which case, then let the financial guys figure out how they're gonna collect it.
Okay. Are we done with what we consider to be our emergency services?
I'm comfortable with
I'm
that.
comfortable.
I'm comfortable.
I'm absolutely comfortable with it.
Okay.
I don't
Do you
see
want to talk
any
about
need-
street lighting?
Do you,
Like really briefly, like just trust?
I'm happy to.
I'll just give you an opinion.
Yeah, okay, I'm happy to do.
Just so you can
yeah.
think about it for the next one.
Yeah, I think, no, I was
Thank you,
just,
Jean.
no,
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I
Um,
think that starting the conversation, if we have the energy to do it.
Okay.
Well, I
I
just have a
know.
question.
Carol, yeah, go ahead, because
But
I want to ask you
are
something.
now officially with us, right? You will.
I
Oh,
guess.
she is. Oh,
She's
she's in.
officially.
Okay,
Sorry,
duly noted.
I
Carol.
don't know whether if I point them on high or underneath.
Came back.
Under the table or whatever, probably under the table. Anyway, I have a question, as a town board member, I have a question for you. Okay.
As a town,
Board member,
Oh,
for her. There was supposedly a proposal not too many months ago to eliminate a number of streetlights in the
Yes.
town.
Yes,
Including Cherry Hill, going back to before Cherry Hill.
yes.
And so far, there have not been any streetlights eliminated, which is fine with me.
Yes,
But my question is then, is this still an issue about eliminating streetlights?
yes. And so what I wanted to ask you on that
Mhm.
issue was, did that start way back when you were there? No.
Well,
Okay.
except that Dave Lent reminded me that it must have been a little bit of discussion because he said that, what he told me, that he was opposed to, I guess the proposal at that time was that there be a street light on every intersection. I had forgotten, and then I thought about it afterwards. A street light at every intersection, and he was opposed to it, he said, but the board voted to do it. And so, you know, so I can't remember when the street light, for example, there's one in the middle of English Lane, which is my side street. And that's not an intersection at all, I mean, on the ends of the street.
Right.
And there's one, and it seems like it's been there forever, but I
You don't know
I
how
have
it
no
got
idea, you know, when it was put up. I mean, it's always been, so the question is so it's still an issue and the town is considering eliminating some
Well,
streetlights?
the paperwork was signed to remove, and then there was some central lights and a couple of the lights had problems, so yeah, the rest of them,
Does
that were
remove
approved
mean
to-
physically remove the lights or just turn them off?
physically remove. So,
And we have to remember, by the way, that Fawn has really strong feelings about sidewalks and lighting because of where she is.
actually, I was very surprised that you and Fawn, last month, your views were exactly the opposite of what I thought. Like Fawn was on board with townwide village paying for sidewalks, which she doesn't have out there, and going with lighting districts, and
I'm not going for, I'm not, I'm convincible, but if I were benevolent despot of the world, I would be saying streetlights and sidewalks are part of a viable community, especially one that has
well,
an
now,
urban
see,
hub.
I would agree, but, okay. For example, I hate to do this, but me, you and Annie are right here. We're in the core, we're in the village, okay? And yet, out in Cherry Hill, where Carol is, that small community is not on 299. It's not in the hub where we have a lot of streetlights. We also have a lot of college students walking back from bars at night. And it's a very good thing that we have a lot of streetlights for a lot of good reasons. But out where Carol is, there's not a lot of streetlights. And I feel that if a community, a small, not that they have a designated
A neighborhood, let's
homeowners,
just say.
a neighborhood,
Mhm.
exactly. Not that they have a homeowners association, but if the neighborhood got a petition and wanted the streetlights, that if it formed a district, this townwide village would move forward and get them for them because they're paying for them themselves. And if it was something that made them feel safer, made them feel more comfortable, or just made them feel content that they had streetlights, then I think any neighborhood who wants streetlights should be able to have them. However, municipalities cannot keep foot in the bill. Do you want to know? I think we covered somewhat the costs.
That's what I was going to ask you. Why is the town
The
going
village,
to?
the village is 60,000. And the town, I thought it was 18. It's 18, so that's $78,000 a year. But if each community had it, they're not excessive. Do you remember street lighting districts ever being, they're not big bills, there's no maintenance. It's just literally paying the electric bill.
I believe
That's
so.
all I used to charge for.
And traditionally, I think the utility might actually even, may not any longer, but used to have some sort of policy about installing them if, as you said, when the electric was paid. The only thing I would say about ours are were provided at a time that they're basically what's known as sort of, large Cobra headlights. They're the kind of things that if you're coming up to an interchange or a toll booth in the thruway that might be appropriate, but they're not at all the design and specification that we really want. But that they were installed at a different time.
In this day and age, they're not.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
but they were installed by, we didn't have a choice, it was what the utility company.
No, well, it was before the days of halogen light.
And also before a lot of attention and detail was paid to
Oh,
this. So
okay, bad
I'm trying to put it in the
yeah.
context of
Right.
time. And by the way, I mean, as a newcomer, not only to staff, but also as a resident, a new resident to the village, there's an awful lot I don't know. But luckily, I've met an awful lot of people in the community who have familiarized me with the history of the village and the town.
So, okay, do you want to say something?
How do you feel about if Cherry Hill wanted to?
Well, I guess from a purely selfish point of view, I would say that we should be part of the whole community and everybody should pay for it. I would just also say that this past weekend, we had vandalism in Cherry Hill. So it's-
Now, that would be one of the
Yeah.
reasons
And
why.
we are the next step into the village. You know, if you didn't know where the boundary was, you probably think we were in the village. So from a selfish point of view, I'd rather just keep it the way it is. I'd like to keep all the lights that are there and have the bill sent.
From a very selfish point of view, because I'm in the village, honey, okay? Think of that
I
bit.
know, I just said for myself. I suppose from a,
I don't know about your development, Jean, but I know Briarwood has its own lighting within
Yeah,
Briarwood, just
Within
like
the
a
county,
neighbourhood would be.
within-
Yes,
yeah.
as part of the
Overhead.
the planning board
Over the
review and
homeowners
approval of those
association.
projects.
Yeah.
So I would,
Let's consolidate then, because me and Carol want to share our bills.
no, wait.
well, I think one of the arguments has been that we in the
The only-
town do use the village streets
Right,
and
yes,
therefore we should.
yes.
And I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I have
But
no
at the
problem.
same-
You know what, I'll tell you why I was thinking about districts, because I first got on the town board and, the street lighting review conservation committee came and, you know, gave us the recommendation as to the lights and all of that. And I just felt that there had to be people on that street that wanted to keep their lights. I mean, one of the reasons I live in the village is because it's the closest to like a city that I grew up in. I grew up a block away from here. I would not survive west of the Wall Hill. I would not survive in Cherry Hill without sidewalks. I just wouldn't.
So let me,
Sidewalks and street light
right.
are part of my very existence.
Well, I want to say, I think that, and I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to think about this in terms of districts. I don't want to use that word for the moment, okay? I think from a practical standpoint, there are areas where it makes sense to have good lighting and sidewalks. And there are areas where if I lived there, I wouldn't want streetlights or sidewalks. It's one of the reasons why I would choose to live there. Right? So I do think that there would need to be some kinds of guidelines. Maybe there needs to be a completely separate study group that would look at this whether we consolidate or not, because I think it's an important issue. What makes a community viable, livable? I want as many sidewalks as we can have. I think that people, and I want them in good repair. And I think people should be able to use sidewalks. I want a bike lane if we could figure out how to do it. And I want good lighting. I'm not sure that the same lighting that we need on Main Street is the kind of lighting
that you need on a residential
Cherry Hill,
road.
for instance.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean that we don't need lighting up there. So I might propose, if I were benevolent, that I wouldn't have to propose it. I might be saying, what we need is certain kinds of guidelines. If there's density,
Right.
then it's an automatic. If there's not that much density, then there's a review board that says, yeah, there's not that much density, but whatever the but is, right? So I'm not saying that anybody should just be able to call up and say, hey, I want a street light in front of my house and everybody's got to pay for it. I think there need to be guidelines, but I do think that the basic premise is streetlights belong to the community, sidewalks belong to the community pays for them. And there are some times when I think to myself, when I have had conversations with people say, I live in the village and I don't see why. I want to put a meter at the Walk Hill Bridge, if you're coming into the village, you need to put money in that meter to pay for the use of my sidewalks and my lights. And if you don't want that, then man, you have to contribute to this.
Then you're gonna have to work on my head, because really, I felt when presented with this argument that there were people who lived in neighborhoods, like Carol said, a certain number of lights went off. There were people who lived there that had no control, because it was a board body that was allowed to make the decision. And I feel that if they had districts, they would have more of a voice.
But then they would be paying for it, and I think that, for me, that goes against.
Okay, I have plenty of thoughts. How do you feel about it? But it's not just your area, so now I'm not picking on you.
Well, I don't.
But think about Druzine, right there across from Shopping.
Yeah.
All those roads are they're right on the verge of the density.
Yeah.
Because we are, the village has expanded. Okay, there's tons of student rentals in the town, right? You know that too.
That's a completely different topic.
I know, but I'm saying it's spread
to do
right.
with density.
We burst, the village burst at the seams, and now we're infiltrating what used to, didn't have sidewalks, didn't have streetlights, but probably should be considered part of our urban area. And I'm talking about just about, not west of the Walking, obviously, but probably down to Sunset Ridge
Well, I'm not sure.
and
Do
up to Shopper.
we need sidewalks on Cherry Hill? And I know that was an issue way back. I remember when John Anderson was building inspector, that was discussed way back then. But fiscal lights, of course, put that one, I'm sure they had.
Right, they had to.
Your site plan. As far as the streetlights are concerned, I guess from what Dave Lent was saying recently, that the town board back then, voted to put them on every intersection, according to David, in the town.
Throughout the entire
throughout the town.
Every
David was
intersection, the
supervisor.
entire.
Dave Lent was a supervisor at that time, and I was in the town board at that time. And I had forgotten, but because David made some comments, and then I didn't want him, David's friend.
But I think that's a good idea.
And that's how I think it ended up, that's where, that townwide then, at every intersection, there is. But I know on English Lane, there's not a very long street, there's a street light in the middle.
Halfway.
You know.
But even
So I don't know how it got there.
But if you
Rural or
go up,
otherwise,
if you go
throughout
up
30 square miles of the town, every
Horsenden, let's
intersection.
say, there are side streets.
I don't think
Well,
No,
not
not
much.
west
There's
of the-
Mayor's Lane,
the south of Highville doesn't.
and then there's Mayor's Lane and, what's it, Hickory Man or something like that. There aren't that, and one on the other side. I don't know if I can recall at night, because I just usually go there in the daytime. I'll have to look tomorrow and go to the landfill.
Right, but the point is that would we want streetlights on those? See, that's why I'm not sure.
I don't know whether Horsenden should be dark from 32 to North Putt. I don't know whether it should. I don't think that's a good idea. That's a long stretch.
But there's no intersection on it, so it
There
would be
are a
on
few.
32 and it would be on,
Well, there are some side streets.
Oh,
She's
there
right.
are.
There's Mayor's Lane. I think there are 3. 2 on one side of the street, 1 on the other.
This is why I think that this really, I mean, there must be planning guidelines
There
that talk to
absolutely
these
are.
issues.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure because we haven't had any new subdivisions for quite a while, with the
Right.
economy being what it is. And I think in the code, in subdivisions, there are like so many feet, you
Yep.
have to have street light. But we haven't had any new ones for ages, so that's sort of irrelevant at the moment. But I think that's in the town code. the town
Well,
plan.
I mean, if an argument is made, a legitimate argument is made for safety, whether it's pedestrian or crime or whatever it is, then to me, that's a community
that
issue.
it's public safety.
Right, and I
Right.
don't have a problem with that. If, I think about how many times you go on a street and there's a sign that says, please drive carefully, deaf person, or something like that. We're a community, we have to look out for, so I don't know. I think that what I would, if we had to, without Fawn here, because I know that she has very strong feelings about this, if we had to make a decision right now, if we had to write our recommendation, I think that my recommendation would be whatever we decide is paid for community-wide. There needs to be a study group, there needs to be a consultation with the
Follow-up.
planner that comes up with guidelines for how it's determined where new lighting or new sidewalks go. Rather than just a blanket policy that says anyone who wants them has to pay for them, or anyone who wants them, we're gonna pay for them, or whatever it is. There needs to be,
This is one of the easier issues that we've talked about tonight, and even sidewalks and street lighting. The Village of New Paltz, to my understanding, has previously had funds available to it that it earned through applying for them and becoming eligible. And during some period of time, that money was not utilized, and it is now.
For what?
For actually sidewalks, street lights, street furniture, everything. In other words, it's called, generally speaking, streetscaping. And however, I don't know all of the details. All I know is that I was informed that these were applied for, and money was appropriated directly for it, and it was not exercised, and now it has gone back into that system. And
Did
distributed.
they get them?
No. But again, I don't know the details of how this happened. But to be honest with you, yes, there are many communities, and ours, our makeup makes us potentially very eligible even in the most competitive times, which is this moment in time.
Yeah.
But they, of course, I have a series of photographs from other communities, but they receive everything, including wider sidewalks, elaborate designs of pavers, street lamps. Again, the ones that we have are not only sort of towering over us, but of course the lenses themselves are oxidized. They're not at all they're not energy efficient. They're not at all they're really lighting up the sky, so you can't see the stars, but it doesn't help you. The safety it's there, but you don't need a lamp like that, and it's not providing much light, and it's not doing so in a very energy efficient fashion. So when you see those communities that you may notice as you drive through them, it looks like someone just went through and renovated every sidewalk, widened it, created different types of crosswalks that are more noticeable.
Yes.
Everything from street lamps to uniform separate recycling and garbage cans. Many communities and villages, especially the village form of development, that pattern of development, many villages have that, many cities have that, and town centers.
Right.
and I would like
And
the
that's what we
sidewalks
are.
to be handicap accessible.
Yes.
You can't walk down town if you're,
And then well.
I mean, I think this is part of a really,
Right.
you
The bluestone is a
larger-
problem. The
It's
bluestone
so
is really a problem.
slippery.
Well,
It's
because
beautiful, but it-
yes, but it's in front of a historic home, so it has to be replaced with bluestone, and that is a significant problem. Really.
Right. Okay, so.
Cost-wise, you mean?
Oh,
Yeah.
But they're also very slippery.
oh, yes, they are.
I mean, they're dangerous.
It's a historic home. You don't have a choice.
No, I understand. So.
So you're gonna have to cross the street in the winter, okay?
The other thing is, this is a question, the fact that so many of our main village thoroughfares are actually state roads, does that make it easier or more difficult for us to get, or does it not matter, for us to get better lighting?
Generally speaking, it would be easier to obtain those types of grants that include lighting, sidewalks, crosswalks, you name it, anything in that right of way other than the traveled way for vehicles.
Because man, 32, going north on 32 is one scary prospect at night. Right?
Yes.
And
Right. I don't know why they didn't do that when they did 32 South and 299. I don't know why they didn't do that.
well, whatever, but the point is, just to go back to my original point, we can as our committee, you know, I can see that as, that the purview of this committee to make recommendations about whether we think it should be community-wide cost or whatever. But I would hate us to make any recommendation, whatever it is, without recommending also that there be some kind of a study group that comes up with guidelines that take advantage of the fact that we have a planner, and come up with guidelines.
I don't know what criteria the committee did that recommended, getting rid of the lights. I didn't know there even was a committee until I read they were gonna take these lights out. And.
Yeah, was that a cost thing? Was it the cost of them?
They looked at the cost, I think they looked at the number of households, and I don't know, it was, yes, there was a committee, and it was established by the prior administration, I guess.
Yeah, well, that.
Was it?
That's-
It was odd, I really felt like the people didn't get to speak. So,
Plus the town's still so court, a sixth of the villages.
right,
so
right.
Fifth or something.
But I have to say, on the other hand, on the village side of it, I mean, I feel that it's important. Although I do know from past experience that a lot of them during the course of the college term, they get broken.
Excuse me,
Mhm.
just a point of information, it is now 1:01. What are we supposed to be doing vis-a-vis the
Well,
town?
technically, I'm here till 11:30 at latest, so.
Oh,
Do we want to
well, I would be really happy if we could keep it to 2 hours.
So we're gonna- Okay, so then are we all in agreement that we feel really good about what we've accomplished tonight, and we'll continue next time, so we're going off the year?
Do you have a date for the next meeting?